balance. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to get started. I'm going to end the poll now, and we can publish those results a little bit later, and we'll be entertained, I'm sure, by the results of that, because it's really important to get people's feedback on how they think about, what's possible over the next 12 months, particularly in work-life balance. Okay, so away we go. I'm Tony. My partner over here in crime, my wife, my business partner is Paula in the background, managing the back end, along with our team, Chloe and Sam, and they make up our team of Liberated Leaders. And I've got to tell you, what a great group of people that they are. Particularly, it's been a busy year. We've been talking about work-life balance for most of this year because we haven't had it, to be honest. So we've, in our reinventing ourselves, we've gone, wow, what a great opportunity here to actually practice what we preach. And let's have a webinar series called What's My Story? We're going to share a little bit about What's My Story means as a webinar series. But our first webinar, our kickoff for December, is this work-life balance webinar. Now, we've been putting out a lot of social feeds around work-life balance as well. Now, one of those feeds you would have received is a wheel of life. And that was an opportunity for you to really download that and reflect on 8 domains of that wheel, about how you're going across 8 domains of life, which include, purpose, money, spirituality, learning, recreation, body, family, friends, and career. And so that is going to be the basis of our conversation today. And so listen up, sit tight. We're going to move fast, but we're going to be reflective as well. And that's our invitation to you, we're going to get you to stop and think and reflect and get something down on paper. We did put a request out there for you to download our resource. And if you had time, it wasn't necessary, but if you had time, is to address question 1. Which was, in a few words, write about what frustrates you or what you currently struggle with in the domain of those 8 domains around the wheel. No problem if you haven't. We're going to get you to do that anyway along the way. So let us continue. Now, let me get this machine working. Here we go. Here's our agenda for the next hour together. Excuse me, we're going to talk about a little introduction into what we're up to at Liberated Leaders, a bit about our team and what we do in the world, and then a bit about what's my story. What is it? What sits behind this title? And it goes right to the heart of our transformational work with leaders, both in organisations and in our public program called the Foundations Program. We'll talk more about that later. Work-life balance exploration. And in our exploration, this is really going to take about 35 minutes to unpack, because we do want to leave some time for questions, is we're going to look at work-life balance as a story that we have about ourselves and our relation to everything that is important and that matters to us, and sometimes that we don't invest the time and effort and energy to actually bolster up those areas that create that well-being or that balanced life. We're going to look at the wheel of life, and then there's a take-home activity for you on the resource. We're not going to do that today. That is for your continuing reflective practice beyond this webinar. So we'll give you some more instruction around that. As we shared some questions and some answers there, we'd like to think that we can take all of them, but let's see how we go. We have got a jam-packed action hour, and let's just see and be curious about what we're going to do there. We're going to introduce you to what we're up to in 2020 with our Liberated Leaders programs offers. We have 3 of them. That might resonate with you, and take care of some concern that you might have. And then we're going to go into a closing conversation. Okay, so let's motor on. Here's some outcomes. We put these outcomes up on social media. We're very bold about the outcomes. So at the end of the webinar, you should be able to understand why your current experience of work-life balance exists and how you can change it with focus and attention. The second one, identify how your thinking and habits can limit your current experience of work-life balance. What we mean by this, sometimes our current interpretations of what we take for granted in the domain of work-life balance and beyond is too limited. It's too narrow. So we want to be able to open you to different interpretations about this domain for the sake of taking different action. And we're going to give you an experience of that through this program. Number 3, commit to a range of actions that will open you to making progress on moving closer towards what you want to achieve in 2020. Now, we want to acknowledge that you've probably done a lot of work in this domain in your own right, in your own way, and we validate you in doing that. Our offer is to sit back and go and be curious about, I wonder what these people have got to offer that might be slightly different to what I understand work-life balance to be. So here's our invitation, here's our request, is to put all your past learning and past experience of work-life balance aside and have what we call a clearing, where you can become a learner, where you don't have to be anything other than in the moment with what we're talking about in conversation. Now, granted, you can't talk to me, I can talk to you, I've got the balance of power, but it's not about that. I want to engage you in a way in reflection about you. You know why? Because you're important. You know, you're out there doing probably great things as a leader, as a human being in the world. That's why you're here. That's why we exist. And we want to acknowledge, and we're grateful for that. We're grateful for your participation in this program. Okay, so let's honor that and let's move on. A welcome. Okay, this is what we're up to at Liberated Leaders. We work with existing leaders, emerging leaders, business owners and entrepreneurs, you know, all those people that take risk in the world. That's who we work with. And sometimes they work with us because we say we co-invent together. We're on a learning journey together. And there's nothing more satisfying for Paula and I than to be in a room of people who are terrific learners and spin ideas and bounce things and challenge ourselves. And that for us is a generative conversation. Everybody learns in that process, in that conversation. We've worked with over 600 leaders during 2012, and there's probably a few more that we could, 2019. Thanks for the hand up, Paula. She's my little backstop, so thank you, Paula. 600 leaders in 2019, and you know what? Every leader we have created a relationship with. We're in some kind of conversation because we say that we're up to creating a community of people. We're not fly-by-nighters. That is not our mojo. We're in it for the long haul. So we're skills and practice focused. It's not all theory. We don't give you out-of-the-box programs. We tailor it to suit you because of our dynamic interplay of the way that all of our learning practices come together through webinar, one-on-one coaching, conversations in teams, reading, webinars, a whole range of different practices that we bring to life here to build these skills and practices. We've also got an ebook, which is a free download, Reinventing in the Times of Disruption and Change. It talks straight to what we're talking about here. And all we know is that there's so many people who are attempting to reinvent themselves. They've gone out and done every program that they could possibly think of. And you know what? They're still not hitting the mark. Well, maybe this book is an offer for you to go and download it. And we'd love to hear what how this resonates and how this impacts you. We currently have 3 programs on offer. Our one-day accelerator program, which we're running 4 in the first part of this year and 4 in the tail end of this year. Our Foundations 10-month program, which we're on, currently filling our 4th cohort of 20 people. And, you know, we've got 60 to 70 people already gone through. And while what they are up to in the world is really fascinating and inspiring for us to go on. And then we have for our alumni, people who have completed the foundation program, masterclasses. Now, there is something to behold because we halfway invent a 2.5-day retreat for people, and then we invent the rest on the fly with those people in the room. This March, we have Mastering Conversations, all about the conversations that leaders typically find very, very challenging to have in the workplace. Okay, moving along. Let's talk about what's my story. What's behind this? Well, here it is. We seek to challenge your thinking on matters important to you by expanding and enhancing your horizon of possibilities and generating more powerful interpretations of what you typically take for granted. So what you take for granted, we're up to challenge. We want to bring new interpretations into your world for the sake of taking different action. So you produce different outcomes, produce different realities for yourself and for those you lead and in life. We'll explore new frontiers of moods and emotions you find yourself in for the purposes of generating a new understanding of yourself and others in this ever-changing world. And you know what? We certainly need it. If there's ever a time we need to really understand or interpret ourselves differently, and particularly those feelings that we find ourselves in that either limit us or open us to possibility, this is what we're up to. Okay. We'll confront you and we'll illuminate the influence of your history and how you show up to others for the purpose of navigating life with more care, courage, commitment, and authenticity. Because you know what? When we're provoked, our history is never far away from us. And we're out to set up a new dynamic, a new influence so that you can take greater action and really develop your own sense of who you are and your identity with other people. Okay, so that's what we're up to with our What's My Story webinar series. So if this interests you, if this produces something for you, use that mood to now enter our conversation as we move into the wheel after another couple of slides. Okay, so your story of work-life balance. So look, we live in stories. We're historical beings. We're linguistic beings. We're forever talking, not only to ourselves in those thoughts in our heads, but also to others. So we have stories about everything, and that includes work-life balance. So what is it? Why is it important? And what constitutes balance is a story that you have, or imbalance. It's all your current interpretations. And we want to begin to just start to look at that now. We're not going to go into any great depth today. We've only got an hour, but we just want to give you a tappers, a taste, a sense, a feeling, an experience. Okay, it reveals your personal beliefs, your concerns, your social norms, that shape your judgments, that shape your view of the world. And in this case, shapes your view of work-life balance. We call these assessments. Now, for Paula and I, these are everything. We're not going to go into these in great detail today. That will be left to other webinars to slowly build your understanding of that. But hang in there and stay tuned. We're going to share more about the power of these very soon. Okay, so the sum of these assessments have you determine how you're going in terms of how balanced you think things are, or how you think things should be for you. And of course, what we understand, they create particular moods. We're not going there, but I'll give you the heads up. There's a little question that I've got for you through this webinar that will have you start to think about the mood that this provokes for you. Okay, so today we intend to illuminate what sits behind your story and help you realize that you can change how you see and interpret the entire notion of work-life balance. In fact, probably from your current interpretation to the interpretation that you might have at the end of this, certain things will change. And we're not too sure what those are, and let's be in anticipation about that. Because the moment we go, oh, good, change is going to happen and I'll get this out of it, you've lost it already. So again, let's be engaged as learners. Let's create a wide open space for learning to happen. Okay, you have a resource in front of you. What we're going to be dealing with first is we're going to go through each of the 8 domains of the wheel, and we're going to be attending to question 1 to start with. And then once we get question 1 down, then we're going to go into question 2. Now, you may have already completed question 1 and honored our request that we made of you yesterday. That's great, because there's probably some of you that haven't, and I acknowledge that. Here's the opportunity to spend a minute getting down your thoughts and thinking around particularly these various domains. If you've already completed it, maybe this is a good opportunity to take that to another level, a deeper thought around what frustrates you or what you struggle with in these particular domains. It's an invitation. What we intend to do is just provide some space for you to reflect deeply. We are going to jump fairly quickly through these domains. So I just ask for you to, really think about what frustrates you or what you struggle with, and get that stream of thought from your head, your thinking, your listening, down on the under question 1. And it might only be a line or 2. That's perfect. We've got a starting point. Okay, and then we're going to attend to question 2, and then at the end, at the end of the webinar, we'll orientate you into the take-home activity. Okay, here's our wheel. This is what we put out on social media as an invitation for you to complete your 2009 wheel. So in other words, your as is. And so, sorry, yeah, 2019. Thank you, Paula. I'm going very fast here. Your 2019 wheel, and then also to consider what are your objectives, goals, and aspirations around 2020? Where do you want to be at the end of 2020 with your wheel? And what this is going to illuminate is areas for you or domains of learning that you can begin to build some capacity around to start to rebalance your world, whether it's, you know, getting fitter or, you know, increasing your recreational learning, whatever that is. Here's an opportunity to begin to help you realize your aspiration. Okay. I've got an activity for you. It's called reflective practice. And this relates to question 1. Okay, so have a think, get a pen if you haven't already done it. And if you have completed this, take it to another level. This first reflective practice is around family and friends. So have a think about what is it that you struggle with or what frustrates you in the domain of family and friends. Be liberal, be free, be honest. And for the next minute, just get down what those frustrations and struggles are. Okay, just another few seconds to wind that up. Okay. So I'm going to put up the next one, but just have a think about it, you know, the possibility. Let me put up this one here, career. So what I might be struggling with in my career is getting that job that I actually feel satisfied with. It's really going to tap into the skills and practices that I've been cultivating over my lifetime, but I still don't feel I'm in the right job at the moment, and I'm struggling to get out of it and try something different. So have a think about this. Another minute. What frustrates you about this domain, or what is it that you're struggling with in the domain of career? Okay, another 5 seconds there. Okay, so you're starting to get the beat now. This is fairly fast moving, but it's important that we get this set up. Third one there is purpose in life. Have a think about that. How am I going? What am I struggling with around my purpose in life? What I'm up to in the world, is it satisfying me or is it not? Have a think about that. What frustrates you about, or what are you struggling with around your purpose in life? Okay, another couple of seconds to go. Rightio. let's go to the next. Money. What frustrates you about the domain of money, or what do you struggle with in the domain of money? Okay, another couple of seconds to go on that one. Okay, the fifth domain of our wheel is spirituality. You know, however you want to interpret spirituality, what that means for you, what do you struggle with, or what frustrates you about your current thinking, way of being, orientation into spirituality. Okay, another 5 seconds on that one. Okay, you should be on page 6, and number 6 is all about learning. What struggles do you experience, and what frustrates you around your ability to learn? 5, off you go. Okay, what I said before, 5 seconds to go. Okay, let's put up the next one. Recreation. What frustrates you, or what do you struggle with around the domain of recreation, or however you want to interpret that? Play, sport, hobbies. Okay, another 5 seconds to go. And our last is the domain of your body, your health, your well-being, however you want to interpret the struggles or frustrations that you have around your body. Okay, 5 seconds to go on the last domain. Okay. So thanks for playing with that. It can be quite therapeutic, actually having the time, creating time for reflective practice just to get out of what you're thinking down on paper around what I would consider 8 very important domains of our being or of our life, really. Okay, we're going to return to the wheel, but we're going to look at each of these domains individually. And I've got a couple of activities. We've got about 3 to 4 minutes in each domain. So again, I just ask you to hang in there with me in the domain of learning and wonder and patience, and let's see what we can produce here. Let's talk briefly about family and friends. Look, we've all got a story about that. But have you ever thought about how your family has actually defined how you show up in the world? All the traits, the behaviors, those early practices that you were exposed to, how you engage in life, the quality of your relationships, the depth of your relationships is mostly formed in those early informative stages by family. They become, when we're connected to our family, you're identified, you're seen, you can situate yourself within families. And let's face it, there are families who get along really well, and there's families who what we might label, dysfunctional, but nevertheless, they're a family. They orientate us in the world. Sometimes we break away from families for the sake of seeking greener pastures or expanding our sense of who we think we are. But in some way, we're always with family. And if we move from one family, we create another family. So they're always there. It can provide us a bearing in life. But you know what? It's a network of conversations that are mostly satisfying. And, your family members are probably the ones who you have known most in your life. So in this domain here, families and friends can be defined as the love, the feeling, the trust, or experiencing trust, intimate relationships, growth and care for families and friends, including children. It can be lessened by the absence of holding on to resentments in family, distrust or lack of involvement, not making space for meaningful conversations, waiting for the other family member to come across and clean up something that they did or blame. It's so easy to do it in this family domain. And yet, you know what? When families hum and when families come together, they're a very powerful force and can provide us a really good, stable base in which we can live our life. And they can be enhanced, in time, in nurturing, deepening our connection and having meaningful conversations, commitments, and partnering with our partners. And then there's also, children and the caring of the families, which is so important. So in this, what I would invite you to do is to look at question 1 for family and friends in your resource. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And if you can, grab your pen and begin to underline certain words that begin to illuminate for you. So in what you've written, what emotive words or phrases have you used to express your frustration or struggles in this domain? It could be, they cheese me off, I'm angry at them, or I'm resentful, and that could be at yourself. It doesn't have to be at anybody else. But what are those emotive words that they do something to you? And that you listen to them in your vocabulary when you speak about, the person or the family as well. So just underline those sorts of words that show up as interesting to you. And then the second one here is, what words or phrases have you used to describe your struggles and frustration that you've realized that you use frequently or often? Oh, there's that word again that I've used to describe a person or a situation. So there might be some other word that you've used frequently in your vocabulary, because what we say about words is that certain words, bring a situation to life for us in a particular way that it's only meaningful for you. So you have a particular meaning and an association and an experience with this word. So what we want to do is just illuminate those. Okay, and then once you've underlined them, and then if you're sitting back and reflecting on what you've written and what you've underlined, have a think about this. What mood or feeling does this bring to life for you? What does it bring to life? what happens for you as you're sitting there about this domain of your wheel of life that you would like to be going better for you? Because if there's a feeling or a frustration or a struggle, there's the opportunity to increase that. Now, what we want to do now is to orientate you into question 2 of your resource. Now, that question 2 is, what new words or language could you use? We refer that to bring to life to help you shift from the frustration or your struggle to a more constructive mood. Because those words that you're using are actually generating those moods and feelings and emotions for you. So have a play with them. Be creative. So, I find, for example, in my original text in 1, I find this relationship so hard. Every time I say something, I keep on getting shot down. So in saying that, hard could be exchanged for, well, I find it challenging, but I don't find it, I don't have to be overwhelmed by the situation, because hard is like you can't shift it, right? It's so hard. And every time I go in there, it's just hard. Well, we set ourselves up to be limited by that word. Or I'm angry at that person. Well, if we're angry at it, we're always going to go into that situation having a sense of anger. So what if I could go, well, maybe I'm a bit of peace with this, maybe I'm a little bit over it and I want something different. So, angry might turn to, okay, let's see what's possible. So have a try with it for the next 30 seconds, even if you just note down a few words and then sit back and have a sense about what mood does that evoke for me, separate to the first question that you addressed. I'll just give you 30 seconds just to get some different words and play around it. Don't forget, it's not about being right, not about getting it right all the time, because we're learners. And by the time you get to the last domain, you'll be on to this. You'll start to see a pattern emerge. Okay. So what I want to do now is I'm going to move to the next one, and that is career. Career is a really interesting one here, because what am I doing in life? And, designing and developing possibilities for myself so that I not climb the corporate ladder, but continue to create possibilities for myself. And it's strongly linked to our identity, our professional identity, whether you're in the trades or, whatever domain you're in, is that we are in our career. We are always mostly taking care of our identity. That is what we're trying to preserve. And when we feel that it's being attacked or undermined in some way, is that we can feel that things go against us pretty quickly. And then so we get into these defensive behaviors, and then we can get resigned about it's not working for us. So have a think deeply about career as the concerns that you're taking care of for yourself now and into the future. And let's have a look at some of these, what it can be defined as. Certainly doing your job, having a sense of a journey, personal and professional development path, and a commitment to a particular course of action. We've got some agency in our career. We're up to something in it. It can be lessened by repeatedly breaking promises, to yourself and to others. So not meeting your commitments, failing to plan, failing to reflect and improve, not holding yourself and others accountable. This is the domain of identity. When you don't meet your promises or your broken commitments, you don't hold others accountable, your identity is at risk around this. And this can be a career limiting situation if you find yourself here. However, it can be enhanced by delivering on your promises to self and others, and investing in and planning, coordination of action, and holding others accountable. So really working well together and creating those partnerships and morale. So again, I'm going to invite you with this might be a different interpretation of career, is to begin to underline those emotive words that you've written in question 1. The words and phrases that you've used to express your frustration and struggles around your career, underline those emotive words, those words that do something, that mean something for you. And then as you're going in the flow of this, what words or phrases have you included to describe the struggles and frustrations or resentments that you find you frequently use? So again, there might be something that, yeah, I use this in a particular way or a particular context. It relates to a situation that happens to me. No need to make any judgments of it, but just sit back and then reflect on, okay, so now that I've underlined these words and what I've written, what mood does that evoke for me? What does it actually do? And again, have a think about how you would begin to rewrite what you've written in more of a positive construct. Without those emotive moods, you could flip it. Okay, let's move on. So purpose. Let's have a think about purpose. So this is really about, what we seek in life that's meaningful and purposeful for us. Like when we're doing things with purpose, with intent, there's something in there that we can connect quite powerfully to. But when we're not connected to our purpose, or another way of looking at this is to our values in life, there's something seems to be missing. And this is about, when we are on purpose, when we are living that, we feel fulfilled, we feel satisfied, and there's an energy about us, and we can, show up really well when we're on purpose. So this one here is the purpose can be defined as having and taking a meaningful direction in life, feeling fulfilled, making a contribution, or committing to a worthy cause. Now, what it can be lessened by is working only for money. I'm just doing it for the money. Well, we get tired and fatigued and all of that. Following the wrong crowd, overcommitting to others' pursuits, not expecting others, not respecting others, and what matters to you. And then it can be enhanced by making a stand on what's important for you, reflective practice, questions with those you admire and respect. So again, in the domain of purpose, have a think about those words that you've used that are emotive in this domain. What are words that are emotive and phrases that you've used to express your frustration and struggles in this domain? Underline them. You will know what those words are. And then what words and phrases have you used to describe your struggles and your frustrations that you frequently use? So you can see the pattern that we're looking for here. What are the emotive words? What are the words or the language that you're bringing from your history into this situation? And then sitting back and reflecting on these, what have you written and underlined, and what mood or feeling does this generate for you when you're thinking about that? And as you're doing that, let's begin to flip those words. Try something different. Try a different emotive word. Particularly on purpose, I'm finding it really hard, or I'm struggling to get it. Well, maybe it's a journey. Maybe I can open myself to learning in this and play with it. You don't have to get it right. And then sit back and just reflect on those words. What does that evoke for you? What's a different mood that's bringing about? Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's go to money. Now, money's particularly, we've all got a different relationship with money, but it provides us the basics that the Maslow hierarchy of control says. The basic, the food, the shelter, the clothing. Look, it does all of that. But when you're into a career, money's really important to us, and we all have a relationship. Some good, some not so good. But what we understand is sometimes that we can be working and we're bringing the best of ourselves in, but you know what? There's a niggly sense that we're undervaluing ourselves, that we're not actually getting paid for the worth that we're bringing into an organization or a company. And that can be really unsettling. And that in itself can produce a frustration or a struggle, difficult to try and break out of that. So in this domain, it can be defined as having sufficient funds to support yourself in the future, investments, making choices for the sake of future credit. Now, what can lessen this is a neglect of circumstances, short-sightedness, addiction, poor market awareness, so really not reading the play. The other one there is just living pay to pay, not saving. There's a whole range of things that can be lessened there. And the living pay to pay is a real struggle. I get that for many people, many families. But, we can, if we have the wherewithal, if the purpose is there, we can work our way out of that. It can be enhanced by sound investments, financial diligence, market awareness, and then balancing present and future focus. So again, go back to question one. Have a think about what are the emotive words that you've used to describe frustration or struggle. Just quickly underline those. And then again, what are the phrases that you've brought forward from your history? So where's the common words that you might be using there? Underline those, and then sit back and go, wow, look at the mood that's producing. You see, because if you start to shift your mood around these domains, what's going to happen? New action is going to come about, and that's what we're looking for. And you may find even that a struggle, but we can assure you that we start playing with our historical words that create our reality around certain things, it will change. Okay, and then just make a few other notes around, what are the possible changes around those emotive words that you can use. Okay. So let's go to spirituality. Spirituality is an interesting construct, and it's different for everybody, but that spirituality can be considered as, really accepting that we cannot change. And rather than struggling against it or fighting against it, have a think about, some of the struggles that you have with that sense of spirituality, like I'm not getting it, or I'm spending not enough time on my spirituality, which was one of the areas that I identified in my wheel. I wasn't spending enough time in it, and there was a frustration. So I've gone, oh, hang on a minute, what if I shifted that to something else? But it's being connected to a bigger entity, something bigger than you. It's like that standing on the shoulders of something greater than you that you can connect to more powerfully. And that is deeply, deeply unique to you. But have a think about what are the struggles around that. Now, spirituality can be defined as, and there's many kinds of spirit, what this means, but the mystery of life, the facts of life, living and dying, knowing that we live a finite life, cultivating meaning for ourselves. And the more that we find that we accept the mystery of life and the finitude of life, the more present and the more spiritually aligned that we become. So again, what we want to have a look at what lessens our spirituality, ignoring life's finitude, fearing what's at the end of our life, being perpetually busy, distracted, failing to connect with meaning for ourselves on our terms, being truth holders. In other words, I know all about this and this is the way it is, and we just completely close off to possibility with that orientation and a need to be right. But it can be enhanced by finding meaning for ourselves, pursuing religion or spiritual practice, exploring philosophical questions of self and others, and cultivating a mood of wonder, that beautiful mood of wonder. Again, let's get into the beat. Identify the emotive words that you wrote about in question one. Whatever you've used to describe, and then have a think about what are those words that you've brought from history into this situation that have a particular meaning for you. You might go, there it is again. Just underline it, and then reflect on, wow, what is the mood that this produces? What's the feeling that it generates or evokes? And then here's the beat. Start making some notes around what different kinds of moods, different types of moods and phrases can you bring into this to create a mood shift for you around this. So you might be tapping into the beat of this now. Okay, we've got a few to go. Let's talk about learning. And, you know, this is probably the greatest challenge of us all, is to remain learners in this time of disruption, change, uncertainty, where we want certainty. And how the heck do we remain open to engage as learners in this? And, you know, leaders, what we say, are continuous learners, but there seems to be so many barriers that are thrown against us. But you know what? We've been learning since we were kids. We've always been learning. But what gets in the way of our learning as adults? Well, therefore, learning can be defined as gaining competence, developing skills and practices in professional and other areas. But it can be lessened by the moods of arrogance, ignorance of opportunities, failure to apply, integrate, no time to reflect, always too damn busy. You know, that is the greatest killer of being learners. And then, but it can be enhanced by completing a program, pursuit of a lifelong learning, reading, synthesizing ideas, and reflection. So again, that reflective practice. So again, have a look, go back to question 1. What emotive words or phrases can you identify that you've used to express frustration, struggle in this domain? And then the beat is, what words or phrases have you brought from your history into this situation? Now, you might be starting to observe a bit of a theme or a trend here across the other 6 domains that we've been working on. And then again, reflecting on what you've written and underlined, what mood is evoked for you or feeling that's evoked for you. And then really begin to feel that feeling and go, okay, go back to question 2. What are the different words and moods or words and phrases that you can include in that phrase that will shift your mood, shift your interpretation of this around? Okay, 2 to go, folks. Recreation. Okay, so recreation is another interesting one. It's something that I struggle with a lot, but this is committing oneself to an act of recreation or joy in something that we can, you know, have a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction, whether it's recreation with other people or just time to connect to the environment, like hiking, walking, you know, all of that. Recreation is something that we do seek enjoyment. And but you know, being taken out of our everydayness into an environment to participate in joyful play, for argument's sake, can be really enriching. But sometimes we don't get the opportunity to do that in our busy lives. So it can be defined as entertaining play, art, appreciation of art and culture, things that stimulate our senses. You know, that it doesn't have to be sport related. But it can be lessened by not having a break, no free time. We don't create time for ourselves, no engagement in culture or meaningless play. But it can be enhanced by a holiday, sport, hobbies, going to the movies, going to the art museum, painting, sculpting, time to create. You know, often leaders will say to us, oh, it's time I haven't got. Well, if you've got time in this recreation domain, what are the emotive words that you use to describe that? And then to describe your frustration and struggles around that. And then what are the words that you've brought from your history into this domain? And just simply underline those. And then reflecting on what you've written and underline, what mood or feeling does this generate for you? And if you want to get out of that mood, then again, let's start to replace some of those emotive words with different kinds of moods and the words in the context of what you've written. And again, just for the sake of play, begin to see what changes in you, see what opens, see what possibility comes about. Okay, we're on to our last one. Body. You know, the body is a domain that always goes everywhere with us. In fact, it's not that we have a body, we are a body. And if we were a musician, then our instrument would be our body. And but often we don't understand, you know, the workings of it, the biology of it, and sometimes we don't feed it right. So, you know, our body is how we show up in the world. It's the living. It's the living proof of who we are. It's our identity. it discloses our purpose in life. So it can be defined as our health, vitality, sleep, energy, the capacity to be present and available for ourselves and others. Now, that capacity to be present is that the body is always present, even if we're in moods of anxiety or resentment, which is one into the past and one into the future. The body is always here. The body is always present. However, it can be lessened by poor diet, injury, no movement, exhaustion, sickness, and unavailability. And you know what? Fatigue comes into this one as well by really overcooking us, overworking. However, it can be enhanced by exercise, rest, stretching, mindfulness, and attentiveness. Our body is finite, and it reduces its capacity to live if we don't take care of our health and well-being. So this is a domain of huge possibility in here. So again, in question one, what are the emotive words or phrases that you've used to express this? What gives this energy? Underline them. Then what are the moods or the words that you've brought from history to describe what's going on around your body, the frustrations and struggles? Underline those. And then just sitting back and reflecting on this, what mood do you have about that? What does it generate for you? And then again, here's the opportunity to, whatever that mood is, to switch it, to start to begin to learn how to shift it, is rewrite your phrase using more emotive, constructive moods that might bring about a different mood. So, if it's I find it really, really difficult to find time to eat, or when I'm tired, I always reach for food. Sleep is a big concern for me. Well, change it to sleep is a good concern for me, and I can do something about it. Give yourself the permission to make these changes. So sitting back and reflecting on these, have a think about what are some of the themes that have emerged for you in terms of the way that you're languaging, the way that you're expressing and articulating the struggles and the frustrations that you're having around your wheel of life. Because, we could re-articulate the wheel of life is to say that your way of being and all those domains that you participate in, what's the theme that's emerging for you? What's happening? What are you starting to see? Because in this one here, if we can orientate you into the take-home activity, we've included a little stop, start, continue domain here. Now, it is to achieve more work-life balance in in the domain of family and friends, or career, or learning, whatever that is. It's all stepped out on the pages for you. What am I going to stop doing or being? You'll know what that is. What am I going to stop? What am I going to start doing or being? And then what am I going to continue to do? And this will really help you achieve your goals, your work-life balance goals during 2020. Okay. We're interested in some questions. We've got a few minutes for these. We're not too sure how many we can get, but we'd love to hear from you. So if you've got questions, pop them in the question and answer section or the chat. And then we'll just keep an eye out for what comes through. And what I might do here is, just while we're waiting for a few people here, I'm going to put up another poll that we can, let me just go here. If you could jump in and just answer a few of these questions, this particular question on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is not at all and 10 is completely. How committed are you to achieving work-life balance as defined by you? Let me launch the poll now. Let me just go back one. I see people entering it now. That's good. Let's give you a few more seconds. So the question is, how committed are you to achieving work-life balance? Okay, we'll give it another 5 seconds and then I'll end the poll. Okay, let's end this and then we'll jump in and have a look at this. Okay, so what does it share? Okay, so the majority is up and from 8 to 10. So well done. Anything's possible, particularly, and all of this happens in language. The way that you language is what it's all about. Will bring about change. Okay. Thanks for playing that. So, any questions we've got? How do you define which domain is most important for you? Yeah, good question, Jack. Look, it's the one that resonates most. I mean, of the wheel, the only place that we can come from is our body. You know, and if our body isn't right, if it's not well and healthy and balanced, then everything else is going to be balanced, because we can't look at the wheel as 8 individual domains of action. It's all one, really. But to help us, develop greater competency around these domains, we've broken it into these 8 domains. So have a think about what's the most important one for you. It'll be different for everybody. So I'd be interested in your response to that. Just got a little note here. So post the learning on LinkedIn.
Just what we did on LinkedIn this week was all about learning being the most important for us.
Rightio. Okay, so I've just had a little note here. Paul is saying that it was posted on LinkedIn that learning is the most important. So have a think about that, learning, the body. So, again, but this is up to your interpretation. We don't want to be prescriptive here. Okay, so Renee, how do you find balance when you overestimate what you can achieve a day? Yeah, I mean, we overcommit to ourselves sometimes, and but I guess, Renee, that's about how do you find balance when you overestimate what you can achieve? That's about managing expectation, managing, what it's sort of like capability over expectation. And maybe we need to just take a backward step and go, well, hang on, let me start pulling back what I think I can do until I find that balance and really become a learner. And that's going to rattle you anyway, because, having a full card is probably something that makes you feel satisfied, maybe. So when you start to pull that back, it's going to really rattle you. But that's the learning space. So I trust that's helpful, Renee. Pull it back a little bit, trial it, be a learner, and just begin to see what emerges for you. So thanks, Renee. And last one from Melinda. How do you deal with the guilt of not wanting to spend time with people, but we feel obligated to spend time with them? Yeah, gee whiz, some toxic. It's a really tough question, Melinda, but at the same time, it's a really good question, because I think we might all have that. But guilt is where a possible interpretation of guilt is where we don't meet our own standards. So, guilt lives within us. It's generated by us in language, and it may be historical. So, have a think about what standards of yours that are being broken in this instance, and what mood is that producing? And, ask yourself, well, what is the other person doing as well? Because, relationships, regardless of whether it's family, friends, you could view it as a 50-50 situation. So I trust that that's helped, but there's more. Yeah, we might do some put out some blogs or something like that on guilt, because it's a very good topic. Okay, folks, we need to move on. Thank you for your questions. I trust that they're helpful. What we've got here is we've got a program for 2020, our Accelerator Foundations, our masterclass. If you want to know more, please reach out to us. We're very happy to take inquiries about that. Stay connected with our conversation on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. We're out there. We're a young company. We're out to do big things, but we need as much help as we can get in this domain. So your participation with us on social media would be greatly appreciated. Okay, thank you very much. This has been a great webinar. This has been our first. We'd love your feedback. Once we sign out of here, you are going to get a survey. We would love for your feedback. Help us be successful. Keep connected, and Merry Christmas.